As a bass fisherman, flipping and pitching soft plastics into heavy cover is one of my absolute favorite ways to catch a bass. Now, in that situation, I primarily use a 4/0 flipping hook. So I decided to go out and buy 15 different brands of flipping hooks. These are all 4/0s, and I'm gonna put them to the test to find out which one is the best. Now, when it comes to what defines a good hook or what defines the best hook, there are really three main characteristics that I'm looking at. One is strength. I do not want to flip into a heavy piece of cover, set the hook on a fish, and have that hook bend out or even worse, break on me. The second characteristic is the sharpness of that hook. Not only do I want a strong hook, but I want one that's going to penetrate into a fish's mouth very easily. Now, the third characteristic is durability. It is one thing to have a strong hook and a sharp hook, but if you set the hook on two fish and that point of that hook rolls over, to me that is not a good hook. I want it to be able to still penetrate into that fish's mouth, and that is exactly why I set up what my friend nicknamed the penetration station. This is what is going to help us to be able to see what is the best hook out there on the market. So let's go ahead and dive on in. This video is brought to you by Fin Fishing Apparel. Right now, for the month of September 2025, I am running a package deal over on the website. You can actually get a USA made sun shirt, one of the only sun shirts made here in the US, and a duck hat, which is a waterproof, durable, lightweight hat for $64. Typically, this combo would cost $90. Right now, for the month of September, it is just $64. So if you guys would like to help support this channel and help me keep bringing videos like this to you, click on that link for Fin Fishing. I greatly appreciate it. And in this video, we're gonna be testing out the VMC Redline hook, the Owner Jungle flipping hook, the River to Sea New Jack flipping hook, the Guggen Baits Gold Series Bandito flipping hook, the Gamakatsu G Power tournament grade flipping and punching hook, the Spearpoint Fury flip hook, the Berkeley Fusion 19 flipping hook, the Ichikawa TS3, I think that's how you say that, the Eagle Claw Trocar TK 135, the 6 Sense flipping hook, the BKK heavy cover flipping, pitching, and punching hook, the Strike King Hack Attack heavy cover flipping hook, the Daiichi punching and flipping Pro X hook, the Mustad Ultra Point flipping hook, and VMC's original heavy duty flipping hook. Now, before we actually start breaking some of these hooks and really putting them to the test, one of the first things that I want to do is actually get a measurement of the thickness of each hook. If you look at these hooks, some of them are visibly thicker in diameter than the others. And I would imagine that the thicker hooks are going to be stronger hooks. So by using this digital caliper, we will be able to get a very precise measurement of the thickness in millimeters of this hook. And then that way, when we do all the other tests, we'll be able to relate it back to the thickness to really kind of see which hook is truly the best, which one is truly the strongest. Now, just so you guys know, the actual shape of a hook is not a perfect circle. It's a little bit more of an oval, if anything. So I'm actually measuring this at the thickest point of the hook. All right, we just finished up measuring, looking at the list. The smallest diameter hook we have on the list is the Berkeley Fusion 19. The thickest one is the Strike King Hack Attack heavy cover flipping hook. Now let's go ahead and try to break and bend out some of these hooks. So basically what I have over here is a push-pull force gauge, and I'm going to attach some strong braided line to a hook and hang it on this little post right here. And then I'm gonna start cranking that push-pull force gauge. And when that hook finally gives away, whether it breaks or completely bends out and releases from this hook, it will tell me at what poundage that happened. So then we can take that overall poundage and divide it by the diameter, and it should give us a really good indication on what is actually the strongest metal of the fishing hooks that we're looking at. Yeah. You can see there, that hook just straightened out at 53.4 pounds, according to my scale. The one thing that I noticed, and I may have to test out another hook, is that the barb was actually caught on the tape that is on this. And I don't know if I necessarily want that because I think it might give it an inconsistent result. So I think I may run this test again with this hook, obviously not this hook, but I'm gonna take this tape off of here, and I think that will give me a more consistent result. By the way, every time I do a video where I'm testing something, there's people in the comments that are like, you should have done this, and you should have done that, and you should have done all this. And look, I get it. I'm not perfect. I'm trying to do this where it is the most consistent as possible. But all I can say is that if you have a better way of doing it, put it on your YouTube channel. This is the way that I thought to do it, and that's the way that I'm gonna do it. Yeah. Whew, hit my box. Oh! That hit me right in the buttocks. Oh, gee. Ah! All right, we just got done with the strength test, and what you saw is that most of these hooks either broke or they bent out between pressures of 45 pounds to well over 100 pounds, with one of them actually maxing out my scale at 116.7 pounds of pressure. Now, there were 3 of these hooks that broke, including the Berkeley Fusion, the BKK hook, and the Spear Point hook. Now, it doesn't mean that those hooks are any worse than the other hooks. It just means that they're a little bit more of a brittle hook where they broke instead of bent out. Now, with all that being said, it's very important to understand that as an angler, especially a bass fisherman, it is very difficult to put even 40 pounds of pressure on a hook when you set the hook on a fish. I mean, most of our drags and our reels have a 22-pound like maximum. So even if that thing is absolutely logged out, like completely cinched down, you're not gonna be able to put even 40 pounds of pressure on a hook. So most of these hooks are not going to bend out when you set the hook on a fish. But what I really wanted to do in this test is simply see which particular metal that the hooks are made out of was the strongest. Now, in order to see that, it's not necessarily just the strength, because again, some of these hooks are thicker than others. And so what I wanted to do is come up with a strength, a power index. And so what I'm gonna do is actually take the overall poundage and divide it by the diameter of that hook. And as you can see here, most of these hooks are all relatively the same. There were 2 hooks that I would consider to be the strongest hooks on the list, including the Guggen Squad Gold Series hook and the Gamakatsu G Power. Both of these had a power index over 66, well above the rest of them. And the Guggen was the one that actually maxed out my scale. Having a strong hook is very important, but also having a sharp hook, one that can penetrate very easily, I think is very important. So we're gonna move on next to the sharpness or the penetration test. All right, in order to complete the sharpness and the penetration test, we're going to use the same push-pull force gauge. I have it attached to a straight piece of braided line right here, and then to the hook on the far side. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to lay the hook right here by this cork, and we're gonna start cranking the push-pull force gauge at 1 revolution per second. And when this hook point and the barb actually pops through the cork, it makes a little bit of a snap sound. At that point, I'm going to stop cranking the gauge, and we'll be able to see what poundage it actually took to take that hook through that piece of cork. Okay, 7.3. You can see that it just popped through right there at 7.3. I actually ran this test 2 times to verify. The other one tested at 7.4. So a very consistent result that we'll be able to use for all these tests. Now, after each test, I'm going to be unclamping my little jig here and moving my sheet of cork over so that I'm using a fresh piece every time. So I decided to go ahead and run each of these tests twice and then take the average. The first test that we ran was on the Berkeley Fusion. I did a 7.4 and then a 7.3. So a 7.35 will be the poundage. This particular hook that I just did is the River to Sea New Jack flipping hook. I did a 5.5 and a 5.7. So 5.6 will be the average. I'm also, if you guys notice, I'm trying to keep the position at where I put this hook in the cork to be really consistent. I'm trying to aim for about a 1/4 inch above the top. So that is actually where I'm placing this hook, and I'm basically holding it there until it starts to dig in. And then once it starts digging in, I start counting 1 Mississippi's to get my kind of revolutions. Like right now, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, that actually popped through at 3.8. You can hear it snap. As soon as it snaps, I stop the revolutions. That one was at 3.8. So that's by far the best penetration so far. Now, just like we did with the strength test, I'm going to do a power index with this particular test. Just because a hook pops through easier than another hook doesn't necessarily mean it is overall sharper, because a lot of this actually has to do with the barb of the hook. The thicker that barb is, the wider it is from the actual hook itself, the harder it is for that hook to actually penetrate. So once we finish getting the results from this test, I will take that number and I will divide it by how thick the hook is at the barb. Is penetrability a word? I feel like that's the best word to describe this. I'm trying to test out the penetrability of a hook. Is that a word? Probably not. Okay, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna quickly measure the thickness of the hook at the barb. All right, we just got done with the sharpness test, and as you guys can see, the Owner Jungle Hook was the best hook in this particular test. It was able to penetrate the easiest, but something that you should notice is that the Owner hook actually has the smallest barb out of all the hooks. So it makes sense why it penetrates the best. If you look down the list though, there's a couple of those hooks that actually penetrated really well while also having one of the bigger barbs. So for example, if you look at the BKK hook, it has a pretty big size barb, only 0.05 millimeters off some of the thickest ones that we had, and yet it penetrated through the cork really, really well. The next thing that I want to do is test out the durability of the hook point. I think that we have probably all at times had hooks that are really sharp, but after setting the hook on a few fish or getting that hook lodged into some wood, it is completely dull and useless. I do not like that. I want a sharp hook that is also a durable hook. So in order to test this, what I've done is kind of rigged up this contraption right here. Basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hang about 3 ounces of weight from a hook. And then I'm actually going to put this hook directly on this 100 grit sandpaper. And then I'm kind of using this snap swivel right here just to make sure that I don't put any pressure on the hook, whether that's lifting it off the sandpaper or pushing it down on the sandpaper. And I'm going to drag this hook across the sandpaper 15 times. Now, after I do that, I'm going to run them back through that sharpness test where I'm going to put them through this cork. The one that is the least amount of difference from what it was before is going to ultimately win this test. Okay, we're going to make this hook point go across 15 times. So, like I said, connecting it right here to my weights, that way I maintain the same amount of pressure on the hook. Then I'm gonna use my little snap swivel right there, and I'm gonna move it across 15 times. So we're gonna go. Now I also have a lot of sheets of sandpaper here, so I'm going to be replacing the sandpaper after running the test on a hook just to make sure that everything is about the same. All right, I just got done with the first part of the durability test, which was the sandpaper portion to really see how much I could dull a hook. I'm actually going to run them back through the penetration test that we did earlier, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently. When we first did it, I was waiting until the barb popped through the cork before I took the measurement at what it was. This time it's gonna be a little bit different. I am simply trying to see when is it that the hook point actually pops through the paper that is on the back side of this. As soon as it pops through that paper, I will then look at the weight, and that will be the weight, because I'm not trying to, again, measure the barb. I'm actually just trying to see how bad did I dull the tip of that hook. All right, well, we just concluded all the tests, and I will say that I was surprised both negatively and positively by some of these different brands, but there is really one clear winner in all of these hooks. One from the stats and the data that I did, and that is the Gamakatsu G-Power Flip and Punch Hook. This thing was far and away the best out of the 3 different tests that I did. It scored second in one, third in the other, and first in the other one. And not only all that, but of the 15 different hooks that I tested, this one had the 6th biggest barb, which I think is only going to help you land more fish. Now, one of the biggest differences in the Gamakatsu, and compared to the other hooks that I tested, it does have that nano finish to it, which I actually think does make a big difference, because when you look at second place in this test, it was the VMC Redline hook, which also has a very similar coating to it. The big thing I want you guys to remember though, all of these hook brands can probably catch you a 10-pound fish in heavy cover. If I'm going to put money on the line though, I am going to go with the Gamakatsu G-Power. If you guys enjoyed this style of video, you may like my other testing equipment style videos, and I'm gonna leave a link for a playlist that I did right here with all these videos. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. Don't forget to check out that fin fishing gear, and I will see you guys in the next one.